Well, good morning, you beautiful New Zealanders. In yesterday's video, I talked about how MPs, local councils, and Maori activists particularly say things about the treaty without actually saying where they get whatever they are saying from the actual words of the treaty. That's the key, the actual words. For example, they say things like, when referring to Maori having special rights over fresh water, they say things, quote, the Crown has long acknowledged that Maori have rights and interest in fresh water. Well, hang on. Where does it say that in the treaty? It's not there. Number two, referring to more Maori culture being taught in schools, they say, quote, the Crown must fulfill its treaty obligations under Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Hang on. Where does it say in the treaty, the actual words of the treaty, that Maori culture must be taught in schools? It's not there. Number three, Maori activists assert that the following is mandated in the treaty. One, partnership. In the treaty, the British promised to partner with Maori. Where does it say that in the treaty? It does not say it in the treaty. It's not even there. We just presume that what they're saying is true. Number five, protection. In the treaty, the British promised to protect Maori language, land, forests, and fisheries. No, it did not. The treaty does not say that. The only thing the British promised to protect was Article 2, lands, dwellings, and property. That is it. Land, dwellings, and property. That's basically house and contents, mate. Nothing else. Number six, participation. In the treaty, the British promised Maori full participation in the running of the country. This is what they say. Where does it say that in the treaty? In the actual words of the treaty. It does not say that. But we just presume that what they're saying is true. So my question is, but where in the treaty is all this mandated? You've got to go back to the actual words. Show us the actual words in the treaty where all this is written. The activists won't be able to because they are just not there. Foolishly, we have just presumed it's there in the treaty, what they're saying, and we've paid out or done whatever they have demanded, and we've just gone along with all this, but without saying, hang on a minute, where is this actually in the treaty? The great mistake we have made is that we have just presumed that what they say about the treaty is the truth about the treaty, when in actual fact it's not. We have failed to fact check what they are saying. In 99% of cases, what they're saying is just not the truth. We must fact check everything that they say against the actual words of the treaty. That's the key. The actual words of the treaty. So we must know the treaty, must know the actual words of the treaty inside out. With that in mind, let's dive into today's video. This is going to be good. In this video, I'm discussing the letter from Peter Williams that was sent to one of our followers, and he is discussing how Maori are taking over the rights to the water in New Zealand. And so Peter writes a brilliant letter, explains it all very clearly. So if you want to know the first half of this video, it was in yesterday's video, Ignorance Part 1. I would suggest that if you didn't look at yesterday's video, look at that and then come back on this one, because we're working through this letter, discussing it as we go. Okay, enjoy. By the way, you can download Peter's letter in the description of this video, so do that because that'll really help. Okay, let's keep reading. The letter to Minister Judith Collins is worth a read here. Why is Judith Collins protecting Nanaia Mahuta? The government is still holding, refusing to release the advice to prove or disprove claims relied upon to justify co-governance of water. Well, you know what? I'll tell you where this leads. First of all, the Taxpayers Union is not actually referring to the treaty at all, which tells me that they don't actually know the treaty, because if they did, they'd be referring to it, because it can knock down all of this rubbish about Te Mana o Te Wai. It could absolutely be the ace card for the Taxpayers Union. You just have to hang on to the fact that the British got sovereignty, Maori ceded sovereignty, and they gave up completely and once and for all the government and the management of all resources in this country other than those that were privately owned. That is it. That is what ceding sovereignty means. And so the Taxpayers Union could knock down this if they really knew the treaty. And obviously, I don't know why Peter Williams is not mentioning the treaty, going to the actual treaty. Maybe he's scared to, but this is what's going on all over the country. They talk about this is in the treaty and that is in the treaty and this is justified under the treaty, but nobody actually refers to the treaty and saying, where does it justify this? Where does it say this? Where is this requirement in the treaty? And that is a massive problem. So let's keep reading. And the reason that Judith Collins is protecting Nanaia Mahuta is that somebody is over Judith Collins directing her, and I'll tell you who that is. It is none other than Chris Luxon. Everybody in that National Party has to toe the party line, otherwise they lose their job. Everybody has to believe what the Prime Minister believes, has to say what the Prime Minister says, and has to back him in whatever he says. And if you don't, you lose your job. How do I come to that conclusion? Well, Judith Collins used to be, when she was the leader of the National Party, she was very against co-governance, she was very against Maorification, and somebody is directing her. This is unusual what's happening here. Somebody is directing her to say what she's doing and to do what she's doing, and that person is Chris Luxon. And Judith Collins does not want to lose her portfolio as the Attorney General because by going against Chris Luxon, that's what it's about. At the top of the tree is Chris Luxon, I'm telling you, because that guy is pro-co-governance and pro-Maorification, and he's working with TAMA Potaka to express both and to put both on turbo. So let's read on. I'm sad to report that the Minister Collins refuses to release the information, instead doubling down that the public interest in releasing the advice does not outweigh other factors. Really, says Peter. If knowing whether the politician's claims that the Maori own the water are true or not isn't in the public interest, what on earth is? Of course it's in the public interest. We should know what the heck is happening to one of the greatest resources in our country, and that is water, and Judith Collins is not releasing it. In other words, information about this, and the reason is that Judith Collins is under the thumb. She's under the direction of Chris Luxon, and she doesn't want to lose her job. That's what it's about. Addressing the second point in Jordan's earlier letter, she says the Crown has long acknowledged that Maori have rights and interest in fresh water. Now, why isn't somebody challenging that? Where do they get these rights? Where does it say that in the treaty? It does not say that in the treaty, that Maori have special interest in the fresh water. You know what, let's just go over Article 2 again of the treaty. Article 2 says, the Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand the possession of their lands, dwellings and all their property. You could actually say this: the Queen of England confirms and guarantees to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand the ownership of their private lands, their private dwellings and their private property. The British did not give to Maori all the resources of the whole of New Zealand. That is just ridiculous. And why is it ridiculous? Because in Article 1 of the treaty, the chiefs ceded sovereignty to the Crown completely and forever. This set in stone a demarcation between the management of national resources to be managed by the Crown on behalf of all New Zealanders and the management of private property, which was to be managed by private citizens. Nothing has changed, it's the same today. So Maori today have no right to the ownership or management of water. It's a natural resource to be managed by the Crown on behalf of all New Zealanders. This is what the treaty clearly teaches, and this is what was established in 1840 at Waitangi, and that's a fact. Peter says that's a little cute. As we've said all along, some iwi may have some rights over specific water bodies, and here we have it again. The law, the Waitangi settlements have long acknowledged this, and I think that's a big mistake saying that, because the law is making up what the treaty's saying. That's the courts. I talked about that in yesterday's video. The law is making up, literally plucking out of the air what the treaty is saying in it, and so that they can be quickly discounted. You know, it's very rare for the courts or the Waitangi settlements to refer to the actual words of the treaty. And if they do, they used a fraudulent interpretation of the treaty which Hugh Kāwharu crafted in 1986. They bang on about TINO Rangatirātanga or Kāwanatanga or Taonga or treasures and so on, but these are all revisionist understandings of the meaning of the treaty that must be challenged. And they should be challenged because they are simply not the truth about the true meaning of the treaty as it was understood by all parties in 1840. They are modern day meanings invented by the activists. It just says, Peter just says, the law and Waitangi settlements have long acknowledged this. Yes, but on what basis have they acknowledged this, you see? They don't refer to the treaty. They just say the treaty teaches this or teaches that or acknowledges this or says this. And you drill down and you keep drilling down until you get to the actual treaty, if you do this, and nobody does it, and you find out that absolutely none of this is justified. Well, let's keep reading. But the open question is the radical interpretation taken by Mahuta, and now Chris Hipkins, that Maori in general have an overall interest or rights to govern all water over and above that of all New Zealanders. You know what? Why doesn't Peter and the Taxpayers Union go back to the treaty? Why don't they refer to it? Look, he says, but the open question is the radical interpretation of the treaty taken by Mahuta and now Chris Hipkins, that Maori in general have an overall interest or rights to govern all water over and above that of all New Zealanders. Well, who says so? Where is that in the treaty? It's not there. And yet the Taxpayers Union and all local councils and MPs, they talk about this and that, just what I have read. They say things like, the Crown has long acknowledged that Maori have rights and interest in fresh water. Who says so? Where is that in the treaty? It's not there. See? Can you see the problem here? That's enough for today, but I want you to hang on to the fact that it's in the treaty. Maori actually ceded sovereignty. They gave up the right to manage all the resources of this country. Other than that was on their own private property, which is the same today. Special thanks to Peter Williams and the Taxpayers Union. You guys are doing a great job, and keep it going, because your research and your insights and what you bring to the public are absolutely gold. So please keep it going. Thanks, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Please share this video with everyone everywhere. The mainstream media should be reporting on the issues I am raising in these videos, but they're not. Why aren't they? Well, they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? They are collaborating with Maori activists. There's no doubt about that. In the final analysis, the people of New Zealand, that's us, have ultimate power, not the politicians. Did you know that? The people can kick out the people in power, and they can put them into power. How are we going to do that? Well, awareness is the key to change. If enough people in New Zealand become aware of the issues I am raising, we can save this beautiful country. So share these videos everywhere, so that come the next election, we can vote the right people in and kick out the people who are destroying New Zealand.